The year was 2015, and the Wii U and 3DS were struggling heavily with some of the lowest quality first-party titles Nintendo's ever put out. And it seems like the releases Nintendo expected to win crowds over just flopped one after another. But there was a single beacon of hope, a presentation that could wrap up this year of misfortune with something sweet. And on December 15th, we would get the Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS final video presentation. Well, hello people, I'm Tommy, and having to remember December 15th, 2015 has caused me to go into a downward spiral. That Smash presentation was something you truly had to be there to believe. But before we get into that, let's set the mood a little. I was but a wee lad back in those times. I was a 12-year-old in middle school with a Wii U in 2015. You truly could not ask for a worse time to be alive. Now, being the only person in the entire state of New Jersey that had a Wii U, my greatest gaming pleasures back then consisted of me drawing dicks on Miiverse and playing Smash 4. This is all Tommy knew back then, and so you bet your ass I was excited to see that final Smash Bros. Presentation. So, I sat my ass down, and for the next 30 minutes, I would witness the downfall of a video game from a genre that I really don't even like that much. We would be graced with Cloud, a character from a game where that one girl died. Bayonetta, a character who would get a lot of hype when announced, but little did we know would leave a permanent stain on Smash 4's legacy. And then we have the main subject matter and why I'm here today. The character that 12-year-old me cared about the least would go on to be the character that 19-year-old me would also care about the least, but for a much different reason. Join Smash! The ramifications of Corrin Fire Emblem's inclusion in Smash Bros. Has set human progress back 10 to maybe 100,000 years. I'm going to be looking at Corrin from two perspectives. The first from the eyes of a Smash Bros. Fan, and the second from the eyes of a Fire Emblem fan. Because I am something of a Fire Emblem fan. In today's day and age, the stereotype that Smash fans hate Fire Emblem is just as iconic as hating deodorant and not knowing other fighting games exist. Back in the day, however, that wasn't always the case. In Melee, there was Marth and Roy, two characters from a franchise no one outside of Japan knew about. And in Brawl, we have Marth once again and Ike, a character from a game that sold really poorly and is now a bragging right for GameCube collectors. Back in these days, there wasn't any hate for Fire Emblem. They were a popular piece of Nintendo's history, and they got the spotlight that they deserved in Smash. But you see, in between the release of Brawl and Smash 4, a game would be released in the Fire Emblem franchise called Saved the Series. Now personally, I only think this is the second best video game humanity's ever constructed, and because of that popularity, two more reps from the Fire Emblem series would be added, Robin and Lucina. At this point, you could argue that Fire Emblem is bloating the lineup a little. We've got the Brawl veterans and the two newcomers, and compared to the other Nintendo franchises, maybe it is a little bit much. But I believe 4 characters from a franchise that very much values having a lot of characters in it is fine. Nintendo then decided that they want to capitalize on Smash Bros. Nostalgia, so we would get some classic characters returning to the roster as DLC, such as Mewtwo, Lucas, and our 5th Fire Emblem character, Roy. Okay, 5. I can see how 5 characters from a single franchise in Smash may seem extensive, but Smash 4 used its DLC to bring back old favorites that fans loved, and new characters outside of Nintendo's IPs. And then Corrin happened. A new character from a Nintendo IP from a franchise that now takes up 2 DLC slots and has 6 fighters in the Smash roster. Right here, this moment when this screen popped up was when Fire Emblem became too much for a large number of the Smash player base. To Smash players, Corrin was yet another Fire Emblem character who used a sword. This final hoorah for Smash 4 gave us the worst character in the game to fight against and the most ugh announcement of a fighter. But let's jump a bit further in time. Middle schooler Tommy enters high school, the Nintendo Switch comes out, new Smash Bros. Announced, and during the trailers building up hype for the game, Chrom is in the game. Yay. I genuinely forgot this happened, and for the longest time after Smash Ultimate's release, I just assumed Chrom was in Smash 4 the whole time, and there was just a gas leak in my house for 3 years. But no, this happened, and no one seemed to care. Probably because Chrom was just an Echo Fighter, which means less development time, and he wasn't taking up a DLC slot. But you know who did take up a DLC slot? That's right, Byleth, a Fire Emblem character who mainly uses a sword, is anime, and a DLC fighter. This was the final fucking straw for people. Fans were mad, some were sad, governments around the world made Smash Bros. Illegal, cats were thrown into wood chippers, and that was all because, in the eyes of Smash Bros. Fans, Fire Emblem was bloated in the lineup ever since Corrin was announced. But I do believe that Byleth never deserved the hate they got, and the only way to get the full picture is to take a step back and look at Corrin's inclusion from the eyes of a Fire Emblem fan. In Melee, there was Marth and Roy, two characters from a franchise no one outside Japan knew about, and by the time of Brawl, we would get the addition of Ike from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. To the Fire Emblem fans in 2008, this was pretty good. Obviously, not all of them cared because they probably didn't care about some random fighting game, but getting the original Fire Emblem guy and the new Fire Emblem guy, oh ho ho, they were eating good back in the day. In between the release of Brawl and Smash 4, the Fire Emblem franchise's magnum opus would be released, and we would get Robin and Lucina as newcomers, and Roy would be added as DLC. All was right in the world. And then Corrin happened. Corrin's inclusion led to a good number of Smash fans not liking Fire Emblem due to how many of them populated the Smash roster. So let's look at Corrin's performance from their own game. Fire Emblem Fates was a game that was created. Now, due to the fact that the series had already been saved, Intelligent Systems decided to take what worked with Awakening and fix what didn't. However, what we ended up with was a game with pretty good gameplay, an incredible soundtrack, all wrapped together in what is quite possibly the worst story in the history of gaming. If you've never played Fire Emblem Fates, one of the things you most certainly know about it is the Japanese-only petting minigame, and the incredibly bad story is a close second. Now, to some people, this may be seen as a non-issue, you just hit the start button. But when that shitty story affects the characters, most importantly, the main character who is kinda supposed to be you, it really does pull down the game a few notches. I'm not breaking new ground by saying Corrin is a terribly written character. Everyone in the game loves Corrin. God loves Corrin after giving them the Chosen One sword, only given to those who will bring peace to the land of no name, because fuck world building, am I right? Even after Corrin betrays their family, rather that be the family that raised them, the family that they were born into but are not related to, because I was actually given a letter by your late mother that tells us that we are in fact not related, so despite the fact that we thought we'd been related all of our lives, it's actually perfectly okay for us to fuck, or both, they still just can't stop loving Corrin. And the only characters who hate Corrin are ugly people, so their opinion doesn't matter. Corrin faces no consequences for their actions, and when somebody does die in the story, Corrin must tell everyone how difficult it is being them. Woe is me. Only for the other characters to tell Corrin that they're doing a great job and can do no wrong. Now, let's go into an incredibly uncomfortable kissing scene.
Kiss me, you fool.
Oh yeah, by the way, we are definitely not related. It's not hard to grasp why this type of writing makes Corrin quite the unpopular character in the eyes of the Fire Emblem community. So when Corrin got announced as the next character in Smash, it wasn't just Smash fans who were annoyed, but also Fire Emblem fans. Who would have thunk it? Smash Ultimate would then release, Chrom gets announced for some reason and no one cares, and then Byleth would be announced as DLC in the Smash Bros. Fighters Pass. Now, Byleth isn't some messiah of Fire Emblem character building, which is quite apparent due to the fact that they are soulless, but Three Houses was such a major step up from Fates in terms of story that the Fire Emblem community would enter an era of constant Three Houses discourse. Eventually, we would get Fire Emblem Engage, a game that fans played for a month, and then promptly went back to the Three Houses discourse. I believe that Byleth deserved to be in Smash, but their appearance was quickly tarnished because earlier in Smash's life, we would get a character that no one wanted. Smash fans didn't want another Fire Emblem character, and Fire Emblem fans didn't want a character that was written with the personality of a leather boot. If we went back to that Smash presentation and had the ability to change Corrin to a different Fire Emblem character, Smash fans would be pissed regardless. But if any other Fire Emblem character was added, I can tell you that the Fire Emblem fans would be much happier. They could have added Lyn, Sigurd, fucking Dolph. And if they really needed a Fates rep, they could have added Azura, who's just Corrin, but good and doesn't use a sword. Anyone else would have been better, which to me makes Corrin the most undeserving fighter in the history of Smash Bros. And that's the story of how Super Smash Bros. Took my innocence, a single decision completely shifting the history of a video game's legacy. And because of that, December 15th, 2015 will go down as the worst day in human history. And no, I will not be explaining what these other two dates are. Figure it out yourself.